Coming up next on The Voice of Alabama Politics, a call for gun safety. Also, the dark toll social media takes on kids. And can the legislature actually affect change? The answer, my friend, is blowing in the wind, like cowboys around the campfire. All this and much, much more coming up next on The V. Welcome to The Voice of Alabama Politics, where we tackle the tough issues so you have the hard facts. I'm your host, Bill Britt, and as always, I'm joined by Susan Britt, research guru extraordinaire, and Josh Moon, columnist and investigative reporter at APR. Welcome.
Hey, guys.
Yeah.
Speaker Nathaniel Ledbetter has said that addressing crime is one of the major issues that he wants the House to take up this year in the 2025 legislative session. Representative Philip Ensler, a Democrat from Montgomery, has worked diligently on gun control. He's come out with a comprehensive package. Susan, I don't know that all of it has a chance of passing, but he wants to ban Glock switches, those switches that turn a regular handgun or semi-automatic handgun into a machine gun. And that looks like it has a real chance of passing because Senator Will Barfoot, who's a conservative, also from Montgomery, has said that he will sponsor the bill in the Senate. Speaker Ledbetter has voiced his will to have the ban on Glock switches. I can see that coming up. And it will make a lot of people happy in law enforcement, and it'll make a lot of people on the right unhappy. But there you go.
And President Pro Tem Garland Gudger has also expressed his interest in this bill. But it doesn't, the thing I like about this bill is it doesn't just address the Glock switch. It addresses, things that are in the community that are causing the gun violence, poverty, education. Included in this bill are going to be like conflict resolution in school, so you can get ahead of this. Mental health counseling. They've seen it work before. I think they're going to do some of it in the Montgomery schools, as well as neighborhood safety grants that would allow more police presence in the neighborhood, not as a enforcing force, but as a friendly force.
I mean, Josh, all this we've been calling for how many years? 15, 20, 30 years? And that I think they'll get behind some of it. I don't know that they want to fund all of it. That funds is going to be where the rubber hits the road, right?
Yeah. Well, you're going to fund it one way or the other. Either you're going to fund it on the front end or you're going to fund it triple on the back end through prisons and everything else. And so, yeah, it's really kind of, if it wasn't so sad, it would be comical to listen to us talk about, they think we can ban Glock switches, this thing that turns a handgun into a machine gun that no one can control,
right.
That has been responsible for multiple deaths and, was just used in a shootout in broad daylight in Montgomery a couple of weeks ago. It's insanity. What do you mean? If we were talking about, hey, they're attaching these things to cars that allow them to mow down pedestrians on the sidewalks, we would have banned them 10 years ago. Why is it when it comes to guns that there is this this reverence to everything involved in it? We don't do that with anything else, including the protected things in the Constitution, such as speech.
Right.
We don't do that with speech. There are limitations on our speech of what we can say and what we can't say in terms of harming other human beings. What are we doing?
Well, and the Supreme Court just a few years ago made a disastrous ruling. They have just taken all the guardrails off of how we can deal with firearms in this country. And look, you may have a right to own a gun, but you also have a responsibility. And what's happening is our streets are being flooded with illegal firearms, especially here in Alabama. And I want to dig into this other part, which says and Ensler's bill addresses this to a degree, but we've got to fix the root cause of crime and violence. And the root cause is not the guns. The root cause, as you just pointed out before, is poverty. It's broken homes. It is a lack of opportunity. It is lack of hope. And these are the things that really harm people internally. You might even say spiritually, to the point where they don't have any conscience about using a weapon against another human being.
Well, this goes right back into mental health issues and identifying those at early age. Anger management, getting that in the schools, catching it at an early age. I mean, this all goes hand in hand together with the gun violence. We've got to address all the issues, not just one of them.
I mean, Josh, you know this subject. You've covered it for years and years and years. What's your take?
Yeah, no, it's listen, you can stomp your feet and scream that somebody else's kids are not your responsibility, and all the things that people love to say about this sort of thing. But when you have a generation or two generations of children who believe that no one cares about them or respects their lives, they're not going to respect your life. And we have seen it play out over and over and over again. I wrote a story not too long back about the city of Montgomery cutting the funding for youth middle school sports back in the early 2000s. And now they have gone back to funding this because they had to cut a lot of those programs. Well, for the last 15 years or so, they have had kids in middle school that would have ordinarily been on a baseball field or a football field, or they would have had coaches who have been there taking them to school and back and forth, checking on them, making sure they were doing the right things, involved in their lives. And they haven't had that. And all of a sudden they've had a boom in youth violence, and they can't figure out exactly why. And listen, I'm not saying it's all because of this, but that's a piece of it. You've removed from a lot of kids' lives a human being that cared for them and made sure they were doing what they were supposed to do. And if we don't start doing some other things like that, we're going to continue to have these problems.
Well, I mean, and you think about middle school, that's when puberty kicks in. You've got these boys with all these hormones raging through their body and nothing to do to get it out, to get that energy out. And so they're going to find an alternative if they don't have sports.
Well, and we know that crime doesn't grow in isolation.
No, it doesn't.
We know that Alabama's approach has been punishment and not working towards real solutions. If we've said it once, we've said it 1,000 times. Alabama knows how to be tough on crime. We just haven't figured out how to be smart on crime. And there is evidence-based programs, ways to handle this type of violence in society if we're willing to do the hard work. I mean, that's really what it is, right?
Yeah, you've got to sit down and put pen to paper and get out your calculator and, fire up Google and go to work.
As Josh said, you're going to pay for it one way or the other. You're going to pay it on the front end or the back end. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
Speed is one of the biggest factors in a fatal car crash. Your car stops, but your body does not stop at the same time. Your body keeps going, and that could be running into your seatbelt, that could be hitting the airbag. Something has to stop it, and unfortunately, it's something very hard.
There have been times that we've come upon accidents where if people weren't speeding, they'd probably still be alive today.
It's truly dangerous, and it puts everybody at risk.
There's just no point to it.
This kind of stuff has got to stop.
Your home is your most valuable asset. But what if someone tried to steal it from you? Property fraud is one of the fastest growing areas of fraud in the country today.
As a district attorney, I've seen firsthand the devastating effects of property fraud. That's why I'm proud to support the Montgomery County Probate Court's REACT program.
REACT is designed to protect your property and to give you peace of mind. By signing up, you'll receive an email notification if a document is filed against your property.
This program is a game changer. It has the potential to prevent fraud and protect countless homeowners throughout Montgomery County.
So don't wait. Sign up for REACT today and protect your home.
Protect your home with REACT. Sign up today.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. I've been reading some, what I would think are, to me personally, are some very disconcerting news reports. And one of them is that there is no appetite to tackle gaming in this session. Now, Speaker Ledbetter has told you and I and other people that the House will not bring forth gaming. It has to be the Senate. And now it appears that the incoming President Pro Tem Garland Gudger is saying he doesn't think they're going to do anything with it. And I think this, Susan and Josh both, this would be a huge mistake, because if you don't do it this year, they won't do it in an election year, which would be next year. And then when they come back in 2026, they're not going to do it in the first year. So you're really looking at 2027 or later to do something we should have done 10 years ago, or at least have done last session. So I don't know where we go from here if there's not a willingness to bring it forward. And I'm not dissing Gudger or Ledbetter. I'm just saying there's got to be political will. Maybe Governor Ivey, like she did last time, will tell them to pass the bill. And this time, maybe somebody will listen.
They need to. I mean, talk about the programs we were just talking about, you know, with the guns and with the community assistance and all that. Where do you think we can get that money? Gaming legislation. Where do you think we can get the money for mental health, both the VA and in general? That. Where can we get the money for domestic abuse homes? Gaming money, as well as shoring up our schools and doing all kinds of stuff. If they'll just get off the pot.
Josh, I hate to say I agree with Tommy Tuberville, but Tuberville came out last week and said that he thought they should, get the gaming thing going.
Yeah. I mean, he's right. I mean, you're right. We don't agree with Tommy Tuberville a lot, but when the man's right, he's right. And this is, I don't really understand, man. I don't understand why this is always made out to be such a complicated, complex issue in terms of getting it done. I mean, listen, it is complicated in the weeds of this thing. It is complicated in terms of what you can get passed and how you can do it. But I mean, the House had it figured out last year, and they could have got that bill passed, and it would have been a good one for the state. What's idiotic to me is we sit here year after year and do this, and we watch money walk out the door over and over and over again. That was essentially that bill that they had in front of everybody last year was a 12 to 15,000 job creator in the state. It was going to bring in about $1 billion a year in revenue. It was going to create a number of destination spots around the state that was going to attract tourism. And instead of that, now we're going to continue to have the illegal gaming that's taking place, illegal gaming all over the state. That's the AG's office is chasing, and some local folks are chasing and doing all these different things. We're going to watch roughly $1 billion just traipse out the door over and over and over again. While these other states rake in, and we send the kids over in Georgia and in Tennessee to college. Yeah. It's just not. It's ridiculous.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget, just because they pass it doesn't mean it passes. It has to be voted on by the general public.
Yeah.
So this is a perfect time to tee it up for the election next year so that people can vote on it next year. If they go past this year, we're talking about either calling a special election, which is very expensive, or waiting to the next election cycle.
I mean,
I'll tell you what this is. This is a perfect opportunity for the people of this state who want this gambling, who want the lottery, who want the education lottery, who want the gambling spots to go to, who want to clean this stuff up. It's a perfect opportunity for them to let the folks know that are going to be running for election that if you don't get this done, you're going to pay a price.
Absolutely.
For it. Well, the problem is groups like the Alabama Policy Institute and Alpha, the Farmers Insurance bunch over there, who are opposed to it. Now, they claim to be opposed to it on some type of moral grounds, but I hate to inform them that one of the biggest donors, or some of the biggest donors to Republican candidates, including our current president, are gaming magnates, people that make billions of dollars in gaming in Vegas and places like that. So there is some, and even, the president has owned casinos. So I don't know if you don't need to take your morals and stick them where the sun don't shine, like in the closet. I agree. I don't think gambling's a great thing, but I think people have a right to do it legally and pay taxes on it. But these groups, they have ulterior motives. I don't trust them as far as I could throw them on anything.
And voters, look at your legislators. If they're not listening to you and they're listening to Alpha, they're not representing their constituency. They're representing the money that funds their accounts.
Yeah.
Pay attention.
Yeah. And Josh, I want to switch subjects here because if this doesn't make you matter, what as my mother used to say, oh, wet hen.
Yep.
I don't know what will. They are talking now about letting the overtime bill sunset. They're not going to renew it. This is the big talking point around Montgomery right now. We gave hardworking Alabamians a tax break on overtime work. They don't pay taxes. But now they want to take it away. Oh, it's just too expensive. We can't do it. It's not expensive because you didn't have the money to begin with.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. It's a tax break for people who go to work every day, who work an hourly job, and who are then going to make more money because they're willing to work overtime to support their families. And these are the people that you're going to try to take the money away from over here. Now, there are all sorts of tax breaks that went out that have cut into the education trust fund, because that's the big talk.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, we're going to be hurt on the education trust fund if we don't do this. There's all sorts of tax breaks that went out to all sorts of people. There's the $100 million one that I'm aware of, that everybody's aware of, that's going to a lot of very wealthy families out there. And so there are other ones like that as well. But isn't it odd that the one that they focus on immediately is the one for the working people out there? And I got to tell y'all, again, just like with gambling, this is the perfect time to make your voice heard in this sort of thing and do something that puts money in your pocket and food on the table.
Well, supposedly now the Republican Party is the party of the working man and woman.
Mm-hmm. Until it comes to something like this.
Until it comes to something like this. Then they're the party of the rich. It's just a shame that you would give hardworking people a tax break and then all of a sudden you want to take it back. It's just shameful.
It's shameful. It's ridiculous. I mean, the fact that it ups the spending in local communities because people have more money, that it eases the burden on the employer for not having to hire temps to stay out of the overtime range. It does so many things that it's ridiculous to sunset it, other than Arthur Orr and his precious ETF fund.
Well, anyway, we're going to leave it right there. You're watching the voice of Alabama politics. We'll be right back.
My personal biggest pet peeve is kids who are not properly restrained, whether that be in a booster seat, a car seat, or even a simple seatbelt. Kids, they become projectiles. And it's terrifying.
It absolutely breaks my heart to know that something so innocent could be punished so severely.
Your children rely on you to be that person that says, no, you need to put your seatbelt on.
Welcome back to the voice of Alabama politics. Incoming President Pro Tem Garland Gudger has raised the issue of substance abuse. Everybody's concerned about it. There's no one that hasn't been touched by it. Mm-hmm. I don't think there could be a family in America that hasn't had someone close to them have a problem with this. One of the desperate problems in Alabama is there's no long-term care or facilities for people with substance abuse. And most of the facilities you need insurance to get into because they're expensive. And, so Susan, if you want to treat long-term substance abuse, but you don't have anywhere to treat it, I mean, this is kind of bass backwards, right? I mean, come on.
Most people that are experiencing addiction problems have used all of their money, including, any money they would have to pay for insurance. So at this point, we have to step up as communities and force our, encourage our lawmakers to do something about it. Again, this goes back to gaming money that could fix this, but we're going to have some facilities to treat people with addictions. Otherwise, we're going to end up right back in the crime that we talked about earlier, in domestic violence and all of these things.
Well, one of the things that I have talked to several people about is, can we find companies that want to see this happen and do a public-private partnership? And Josh, we do that all the time. I mean, to find someone who wants to come in here, a company or two companies or a group of investors who want to run these facilities or finance these facilities, and we offer them, wait for it, incentives, like we do everybody else. We give them money to do it. So we have a public-private partnership, because if we continue to ignore this, it's just adding to all the problems that we've been talking about.
Let's not forget family trust.
It's another thing that whether you're going to pay for it on the front end, you're going to pay for it on the back end, one way or the other. And most of the folks in our prisons right now that are overcrowded are there because of some sort of an addiction issue, whether that spiraled into a crime, where they were stealing for this or what have you. That's the cause of them being in those facilities. And and just like with the other, it's always so comical because it's like with gambling. We always pretend like we're inventing the wheel here, and nobody else has ever done it.
Yeah.
I mean, we got every other state out there is dealing with these sorts of things and have dealt with them, and some states have done so very successfully. And so at this point in time, we're so far behind at this point. We have just a deluge of information that we could pull from and examples that we could mimic of successful programs, and also how to keep the cost as low as they could be on taxpayers while doing these sorts of things and helping out the public and solving the problem.
Right. But if you don't even have a facility, not one, I mean, what are people to do? Well, they end up in jail.
Right.
They end up if their family has money, they end up in other states. But it is a lack of imagination and a lack of caring.
It's lack of a Google search. Come on.
Google's so blasé now. You got to do ChatGPT.
ChatGPT, search something. Go to a library.
Hey, Josh, I know this is a subject of deep, deep concern to you, and that is the dark toll that social media takes on young people, especially the 11 to 16-year-olds. I mean, the impact on mental health, on social skills, on all of these things is enormous. And, the legislature's talking about addressing it, but we'll see if there's will.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, this is another one of those things where it's not a mystery anymore.
No.
Okay? We know that, some of the information I think has been purposefully hidden from folks, but there are studies, there's all sorts of evidence out there of the impact that social media and staying online a lot has on a younger generation. We've had, a couple of generations of kids come through now and have been just building with this. And so we know what the effects are. We've seen them. And anxiety rates, the rates of depression among kids, rates of suicide, rates of self-harm, they're through the roof through all this. They're way higher than they've ever been before. And it's all built on this. They have been targeted by these companies. They have been fed, through the algorithms and through other means. They have been lured in. They've been subjected to this life, this phony life online that is so far outside the norm of what American kids have gone throughout the rest of the history of the country, where they built relationships and they built friendships outside and had a social construct that was built upon face-to-face relationships and dealing with one another. And it's just, it's so off the rails at this point. It should all be banned. I mean, when we went through a TikTok ban, and I think TikTok's probably the least harmful of all of them.
Well,
it's just nuts.
Yeah, because Instagram and Facebook, they target these people with the algorithms. I mean, if we had drug dealers, targeting children, we put them in jail.
Of course.
The Republicans had this big, they're groomers. Well, what in the heck do they think that's happening with social media? It's grooming them through these algorithms to think that there's a certain type of lifestyle that they need to live and blah, blah, blah. And all
But also add to that these young people put themselves out there, where I am, what I'm eating. Here's my selfie for today. And they're getting negative feedback. Just like, the armchair warriors online that hide behind a fake name and put all kind of misinformation out there. They're targeting these kids, or saying, well, you don't look pretty today, you look ugly, or whatever it is. So it's not just the corporation, it's the people that are on there behind fake names as well.
I mean, there was a time, like Josh said, somebody said something nasty to you on the ball field.
Exactly.
They might end up with a broken nose or busted lip, but there's not much you can do about it if somebody's hiding behind their computer screen.
And
right?
add to that cyberbullying and all that.
It's just it breaks down the social networking of people, of actual face-to-face talking and working out problems and developing friendships and learning how to interact with one another and communicating back and forth. And it breaks that down. And in addition to that, there's also no place for the kids to get away from it. All right. Because it follows you all over the place, where, if you got a bully around the neighborhood or even at school, you can go home and get the hell away from the guy for a little while, or whatever, until you have to punch him in the nose, and then it all works itself out. But at least it works itself out, and you don't have these things continually going on. And that's what's causing so many problems. Not to mention, it's just a phony interaction all the way around. The whole thing is just a phony interaction.
It's not real. The social media is not real. And it just paints a terrible picture for children and for some adults.
Yeah,
it's awful.
it does.
But anyway, we're going to have to leave it right there. You've been watching the voice of Alabama politics. You watch us because we watch them.